right, we are back for another episode of Raising the Bar, where we storytell excellence in Queensland property. My guest today, Mariangela Stagnitti.
You said that very well.
I practiced. You're Italian, I'm Greek. It's,
Same.
it's sort of similar. Yeah, exactly right. Exactly. I'm going to read what I got here to kick us off.
Sure.
You ready to do this?
Sure am.
All right. Most people in finance spend their careers chasing numbers. Mariangela has spent hers chasing people, building community, empowering women, and being honoured by the President of Italy for doing it. Today on Raising the Bar, we sit down with one of the most quietly extraordinary women in Queensland finance. So, Mariangela has spent over 40 years in banking and has been privileged to support countless individuals and companies establish themselves in Brisbane and across Australia. Mariangela served the Italian community for over 23 years, 16 of those years as the publicly elected president of the Committee for Italians Abroad. It is written in Italian, and I'm not game to say that. Do you want to say that for the people? How do you say it properly?
Comitato per gli Italiani all'estero.
That one?
Yeah.
Yep. For Queensland and the Northern Territory, providing community initiatives and diplomatic support in collaboration with the Consulate of Italy. In 2022, so 4 years ago, you were bestowed the title of...
Commendatrice. Commendator.
Thank you. By the President of the Republic of Italy,
Yes.
an honour that has only ever been given to a handful of women in Australia. And you host the Brisbane's annual Italian and Hellenic Business Networking Lunch, which has been a sellout event every year. And in the last couple of years, you've got Carl Stefanovic as well, which is really cool. I know you're friends with him as well.
Yes.
Last bit to read, and then we'll get into the fun stuff.
Sure.
Also, fun fact, you were a radio announcer on Brisbane's 4EB Italian program back in the mid-80s. Welcome to the Raising the Bar podcast, where we storytell excellence in Queensland property. I'm your host, George Sourris from Empire Legal.
Yes. Too long ago to think. My goodness.
We're talking well before podcasting existed.
Oh,
So you were before your time.
Yeah.
You were the original podcaster.
Yeah.
And you started your banking career as a batch clerk.
Yes.
And 40 years later, being honoured by the President of Italy. And we met through a fellow Italian, Leo Di Pinto.
Oh, Leonardo. Yes.
So shout out to Leo. He
Yes.
connected us up, I believe. I knew who you were. We do some work with Leo. And he's like, you have to meet my friend.
Yeah.
And then we went for a coffee and the rest is history.
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
Well, first of all,
Yes.
congratulations on your achievements.
Thank you very much,
Every word I've
Thank
written
you.
is from the bottom of
Thank
my
you.
heart.
Thank
You
you.
are the definition of flying under the radar.
Thank
You've
you.
achieved some monumental stuff. The whole point of this podcast is quite literally to raise the bar. We're in the property industry, right? You do lending, money lending, and obviously we do the legal side of it. We've worked together for a few years, become friends since,
Yes.
started as work, and now we're friends.
Yes.
And this industry has all sorts of walks of life in it, and we only want to have the best of the best on here, right? The whole idea is for anyone listening to get some gold nuggets, get some value, and obviously I want to share your story because I believe you're extraordinary.
Oh,
and,
thank you.
And that's the standard that we want in Queensland and for the people that choose to work with us.
Yeah. And look, when you are in this industry and you are there to help people and you don't look at people as a number, it's a whole different vibe. It's a whole different thing. And you don't even have to promote yourself. What you do, your kindness and your understanding and you're willing to help is what sells you and what brings then the next generation. Like I deal with the second and the third generation of clients. So that honors me. And it's just, it's like my dad. My dad's a retired builder. And for who he built for, say 40, 50 years ago, we are now getting the grandchildren. Because the grandfather said, no, you got to go to Stagnitti and Sons. You can't go to anyone because he built my house in 1973.
Yep, in New Farm, right?
In New Farm, yeah.
Classic, of course.
And my dad still has the file, cash deal.
But look, that's a testament to your character, right? So not only do you have, say, your parents' generation of people that you've helped, I imagine what probably started as Italian community, and we're gonna talk through that as one of the points. then there's your generation, and then there's the next generation.
That's right.
Yeah, so people don't come back and they don't stay with you for decades unless you're doing something right.
Yeah, that's right. And you don't realise at the time either, you know. And the other side of the coin of that is all the new arrivals, all the young Italians that I dealt with 15, 20 years ago, 10 years ago. They came on the working holiday visa that I was able to assist when I was sitting as the president of comites. And they'd come to me for help. And they were my responsibility and still are, as in the sense that I'm still referred to a lot of business through people. Now they've got their permanent residency, they've got their citizenship. I help them with buying a property, with buying a business. And for me, I sit back and I think, what would my father had been if he had someone like me and you helping to structure their future goals back then? They've achieved quite a lot, don't get me wrong. But imagine now these young people having someone like me in their life as their banker, you that helps with their contracts. English is not their first language, but yet here we are helping them buy their first property.
And we have, it's funny, as you were speaking, I recall you've introduced multiple people, a few of them Italians, with non-English as their first language, to Chanel, our practice manager, for assistance.
Right. Yep.
And we were talking through, stamp duty and if there was any exemptions that could apply and helping these people get on their feet. That's a whole section we also have for you, just dedicated to the work you've done with not only migrants, but also with women in particular, which we're going to unpack. But yet, to your point before, and then we'll jump into it, I remember my mum telling me stories of my grandparents came out from Greece, I couldn't speak English, and mum said she recalls as like a little kid, like a 7-8-year-old at Morningside there, they had a fish and chip shop and a milk bar, reading the mail and translating it because obviously English wasn't her first language, they're speaking Greek at home. And you think, you're right, imagine the difference of, say, my mum as a 7-year-old girl trying to help her parents in the shop versus someone like you. You are the biggest quiet achiever I've ever met. I remember when Leo introduced me to you, he's like, you don't understand. This lady, she has things from Italy. Excuse my terrible Italian accent, impersonation. But it's true, right? You should be proud of what you've achieved. Thank you. I just want to jump into those stories and start to unpack it.
No, thank you. When you talk like that, when I first started in my first job in the bank, and I was a teller, I had my own queue of all the Italians, and I was at New Farm, so born and bred, and they would come and stand behind my teller's box, and I'm of Sicilian heritage, so I speak Sicilian dialect quite well, better than Italian, and the branch manager would say to me, "MA, you're in Australia, speak English," and I'm thinking, oh my God, I'm going to lose my job, oh my God. Meanwhile, my queue would get bigger and bigger, and everyone's giving me food, baking biscuits, just beautiful stuff that doesn't exist anymore, and how lucky am I to have experienced that? And that was the beginning of my career, where they then created a role for me in the bank that I had to speak Italian.
I'm getting goosebumps. That is
I couldn't
wild.
speak English.
So this is literally my first point. So this is perfect. So we're talking about the journey from a batch clerk, I guess, or so you start as a teller, basically. Is that the correct
batch
terminology?
Clerk. No, batch
so
clerk.
Tell me, it may sound naive,
is?
What's a batch clerk?
A batch clerk. So back at the time, and the audience, some of you who are my generation would recall what a batch clerk is. So a teller had a batch clerk. So the batch clerk was the one that would grab the checks. Remember the checks that used to be deposited?
You know what? When I started in law about 10 years ago, it was pretty much one of the first times I'd ever had to use a check. Thank goodness for PEXA and electronic banking now. So all the juniors these days, we used to have physical pieces of paper called bank checks and trust checks, and it was a bit of a nightmare. So go on. So you had these checks.
We'd have bank checks and normal personal checks, and we would have to run them through a machine. So physically type $27.13. And then we would have to tally up. And then at the end of the day, you had your cash deposit and your check deposits, and they had to tally up to what the teller had as incoming and outgoing. So the batch clerk was the person that did the checks.
So you worked alongside the teller reconciling all the checks.
Wow. All the check deposits. So imagine
manually. Wow.
Yeah. And back then there was a lot, hey.
Well, I mean, that's how business was run, right? That was standard.
Correct.
There was no net bank. There was no internet. Like, this is how it was done. This was situation normal.
And I was part-time. So even then we had no superannuation because we were part-time. Yes, we worked for the bank, but part-timers had no rights. We had no superannuation. And my job was 11:30 till 5 because the bank would open back then at 9. And the tellers in the morning, especially pension days, there were a lot of businesses would actually deposit in the afternoon and not the mornings.
Yes.
So they would have us on from 11:30 onwards.
Well, we do them in the arvos after the
Yeah, well,
settlement.
there you
So,
go.
well,
That's
why.
right.
That's actually why we're sitting here
Yeah.
in Spring Hill. Is we strategically decided to move here so we could quickly run down to the city because
Yeah.
we were still doing paper settlements when we started. And yes, every afternoon after the mad rush of settlements, we'd be running up to CBA to do the
Yeah.
Office of State Revenue checks and pay the agent commission and deposit our checks. And that was, we had sometimes 2 or 3 runners. It was me back in the day, and then my sister did it, and then we had the junior lawyers.
Yep.
And they'd be running around the city settling everything. Now we're lucky. I can sit at the computer,
It's
press
all
a few
done,
buttons,
hey?
and it's instant. Yeah, it's great.
But then we'd also too, after we would balance that, they would then go in the afternoon to another area in the bank that was shift work. And they would then type in all the checks.
Yep.
And they would then automatically go into their own little pocket of different banks. So you'd have Commonwealth, ANZ, NAB, and then there would be a bank exchange. Then at 8:30, 9 o'clock at night, there would be a bank exchange, and those checks would physically be taken by a delivery truck, or let's say, a driver that would then take them to their bank to then be done at that bank, domiciled at that bank. So imagine like there was hundreds of people employed. And this is the thing, because obviously now modern times, all those people were then out of jobs back then. But that's how banks operated.
The local community relied on the bank so much more, I think, a branch, where you knew the branch manager, you knew even when we started only, 10 years ago, we were at Westpac in the Valley. We started in the Valley.
Yes.
A fun part of the world, and we walked down to the Westpac, and I knew everyone in that branch. It was a very small branch because we relied on them for our settlements every day.
But even the respect that a branch manager brought in that community where they were.
Yes.
And I recall many, many years after I joined a bank, I met the state manager, and his first job was at the Commonwealth Bank, Fortitude Valley. And he went to weddings, he went to christenings, because that was the respect that the Italian community of New Farm and Fortitude Valley, Bowen Hills and Spring Hill gave him as the manager, because he would give them loans. He helped them. So even though he couldn't speak English, just his kindness of helping them. And there was a gentleman that had a business in Fortitude Valley, and he would be the translator and sometimes the guarantor. So that was a big deal back in the 50s and the 60s.
Yeah, well, I mean, communities like the Italians, the Greeks,
That's how they
all
started.
people when they come here, Indian, Chinese, whatever, it doesn't matter.
That's
This is all
right.
how these people survive,
Yes,
because
that's right.
there was no modern times with
No.
Google Translate, and now you can, the latest AirPods, you can put an AirPod in and it will do a live translation. You can chat in
Yeah.
different languages now. It's
I
unreal.
don't even own AirPods, so I'm very 80s still.
But you know what? It's true to the great circle of life. So you were saying this
Yes.
person in the community was respected, went to the
Yeah.
weddings, helped
Yeah.
all the Italians and the wider suburbs of everybody get on their feet. You do that now.
Yes,
and
exactly.
it's the great circle of
Yes.
life. And now you're
Yes.
helping migrants come in,
Yes.
you're helping women come in and educating them to make good decisions.
Yes. But even my mum too. My mum was 17 when she came here from Sicily. She travelled 30 days on a ship. Right, so imagine. She didn't even know what a pineapple was. Like her and my aunt.
No
basically
pineapples in
starved.
Italy, hey?
No,
in Sicily.
man.
No pineapples in Sicily.
No. But imagine, couldn't speak the language, didn't know who was who, were unable to make friends on the ship because you just didn't. It wasn't like a P&O cruise liner. We're talking, these ships were warships that were turned into bringing people from England. So it started in England, came through Italy, got to Sicily, through to Naples, and then come through what we know now as Africa, and coming through that strait and coming to Fremantle, Adelaide, Melbourne, Sydney, and then the train from Sydney to Brisbane. And they would all get off at Hamilton
With no English.
with no English, and then
My
go to the
young-
bank to set up the bank account, because there was an Italian man that had been here for a few years, and he would help them the bureaucracy side, not bureaucracy, the bureaucratic side of it, that they didn't know. And they had so much trust in, and I've got my mum's original passport. And when they arrived in Fremantle, like, it was a scary, and I was there last year. They've got an Italian museum now dedicated to migration of the Italians. And it's quite touching, and it was quite emotional for me, because my mum's always told us these stories. And to see where she landed, how they were treated, they were herded through like cattle. that's still there. That's now a museum. And I actually walked the path that my mother walked in 1958. And as a 17-year-old, and here I was last year as a 59-year-old woman, thinking, how did she do this? How did they do this? You can't fathom it. You can't even understand. In my mother's passport, even the description has, she looked sad, that her eyes were very white. The inside of her eyes were very, not white, they were yellow. Her teeth were yellow, her gums. She didn't look healthy. She looked depressed. This is all written in English. And here they are thinking that, they came to the land of the opportunity. And this is how they were treated. And that passport to me means more than anyone can even imagine to the special effect that it had on me, emotional effect that had on me, about my mother arriving and treated like that. She wasn't treated bad, don't get me wrong.
No.
But it's just the description of how she was described as like a refugee.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I mean, look, very similar journey with my
100%.
grandparents on my mum's side. I believe my grandmother came on her own on a ship. I'm pretty sure it stopped in top of Africa in Egypt for a while, not for a day or so. It was for a while, like they were stuck. Then they finally ended up getting to Australia, and similar thing. And my papu, my grandfather, he was brought over to work on the Snowy River project. I know a lot of the Italians and Greeks had to sort of, that's how you got here, and then they worked as labourers in the middle of nowhere. And that was the journey, right? So it's a blessing that these communities exist, where you could get to somewhere like New Farm, and then you've got this person, this icon in the community that's helping people assimilate and Australianise. And it's cool. It's cool.
Yeah, no, it's beautiful. And they didn't even know that they were doing that.
Yeah.
It was just
helping the community get by, helping people get by, right?
Exactly.
So let's talk through that a bit more for this first point then. So you're working at the bank in New Farm. I'm guessing probably somewhere near the New Farm Deli or something, right? Like you're right in the heart of it. And you were there for what, 20 years?
I was
right?
in the back. Well, I was at the Commonwealth Bank for 30 years.
30?
Yeah.
Okay.
But I was at New Farm for 10 years at the branch. It was like I was forgotten. But, at the end of the day, back then too, banking wasn't a career. It was a job, but it was an honour, especially for us with an ethnic background. To have your daughter or your son work in the bank. It was a big deal back then.
Yeah, so it was a job that
it was
carried
like
prestige.
in the government. It was like, if you got a job in Brisbane City Council or you got a job in government, it was a big deal. You were there forever, and that was a job.
And the community grabs onto that, right? Going, you can help with money, or, this is what you do. You can help me with my business.
That's right, exactly. Yeah. And, I was a teller, and then, worked into customer services. And then I was there for the 10 years, and then I put in for a job to be a relief staff.
Okay.
I felt that was my way out. Yeah, I did that for a few years. Relief staff as in the local areas of Brisbane, not going out into the regional areas. I didn't want to do that. So we had what we used to call internal relief. So it was like Spring Hill branch.
Right. So you're like a substitute teacher, but for the branches. So you'd go plug into that branch to just help fill headcount. Gotcha.
You'd be a teller, or you'd be a customer services officer, or you're a branch manager.
Right.
So I did that for a couple of years. And then I put in for a role in migrant banking.
Okay. This is a great sort of naturally on the path. All right. So tell me more about that.
So we had migrant banking. We're probably the first bank to have it as Commonwealth Bank. So back at the time, we had an office in London and we had an office in Singapore and an office in Hong Kong.
CBA did?
Yes.
See, I didn't even know that was a thing.
Yeah. So they were considered offshore.
Yep.
They weren't branches, they were just offices.
Yes.
But the one in the UK basically dealt with expats that were coming back to Australia and or Europeans that wanted to come to Australia. And then we tapped into the South African market. So CBA then had an office in Johannesburg. So that's what they then created as migrant banking.
Okay.
So they had a lady that was of Serbian background, and she spoke Serbian, Yugoslavian. She could speak Russian. She could speak Ukraine. So she basically looked after that whole part of Europe.
The Eastern Bloc.
Yes, the Eastern Bloc. And then there was an Asian lady as well. And then they created a role. And I put my hand up for it. And I remember going for the interview, and the then manager boss said to me, "Why would I give you the role?" And I said, why not? And I'm thinking, please let me get this job. I can speak Italian, please, please, please. And yeah, he just took a punt on me.
So was there
And
enough
I did it
of
for
a...
20 years.
So was it in particular because you had the Italian language?
Yeah.
Was there enough of
Yeah.
a community, enough of a client base to support that?
But it was the new arrivals.
Okay.
Yeah, so it was the
that was the
Italians from
niche.
South Africa, for example. The Italians from Kenya. There's big Italian population in Kenya. Yeah.
Never knew that either.
Yeah, from Kenya. A lot from Egypt. So they all tapped into the UK because a lot had their money invested offshore. So the South Africans at the time, there were rules and regulations that were very, very strict. So a lot of the Italians and the Greeks that lived in South Africa, the Portuguese, the Germans, had bank accounts in their countries, their mother country,
Yes.
be in Greece, Italy, etc. So they were allowed to transfer money out of South Africa into those European countries, but not to Australia, because then at the time they couldn't migrate. They weren't allowed to migrate to Australia. So this money would go around the world basically before it would come to Australia. So I did that role for all of Australia.
Wow.
Yeah,
See,
so it was a massive.
You pioneered this. See, I had no
with all
idea.
of
This
us.
is all, but that was all uncharted territory,
Correct.
right?
At the time, 100%.
Yeah, get out of town.
We're the only
Okay.
bank that had that. So
Yeah.
my colleague Mary at the time, she dealt with all, the Russians, the Ukraine, the Yugoslavs and so forth. Then I did all the Italians, whether they came from Canada, whether they were from the UK, so forth. So it just got quite big within its own little environment. But at the same time, it connected me with the multicultural area of the Lord Mayor's office. It connected me with the Premier's department. It connected me then with also all the immigration agents at the time. There's only a couple of them, but they were all we needed. And Brisbane was very small at the time, investment-wise too, And
And we're not even talking like consulates who obviously
yeah,
Italian,
yeah,
Greek,
yeah,
all
yeah,
walks of
no,
life.
yeah,
So
yeah.
you would have been building this really unique network of multiculturalism.
That's right. And at the
Yeah.
time, then I became president of Comites. So for me, if I met you and you were a CEO of an Italian company, that you were coming through the bank, whether it was through the UK or because it was through the Bank of Italy, let's say, and it would come to me as an inquiry, the first thing I would say to you is, are you bringing any staff? And you say to me, yes, I've got 15 engineers that are coming and we're going to be working on Legacy Way, for example, right?
Wow.
So they all needed bank accounts.
Yeah.
So there's your bank account. But then my other hat was representing the Italian government. And it would be, George, you know that you have to actually register yourself as an Italian abroad. You're changing your residency for visa purposes.
Yep.
So for me, it was just hand in hand.
Yeah, cool. So
Hand
it's
in
both,
hand.
sides. Yeah.
And I got the gift of the gab, so it
Yeah.
wasn't hard, right?
Oh, between you and me, we can chat all day, don't you worry.
So do you know what I mean?
I do,
didn't
yeah.
even wake up one morning and go, oh, I've got to do this and it's going to be this. No, it was just me being me and just saying, this is what your responsibility is. You have to register as an Italian abroad because you're changing your residency. And for tax purposes, you have a tax file number attached to your visa. So I had to learn all that. So from that, then I created educational pieces.
Yes.
So I tapped into the Italian Consul. I tapped into immigration agent. I asked for a lawyer that I was working with to become an immigration agent. We didn't even have one in Brisbane that spoke Italian.
Huh.
So I begged his boss. I said, please, I'll provide you all the business. Trust me, you'll make money. Trust me, because they had to charge for it,
Yeah, well, it was
All the
a
different
necessary
visas, correct.
service. It was required. And
That's right,
To help these
exactly.
people, you need a partner like that.
And I wasn't licensed, and I didn't have the knowledge of what was behind all these visas, because you've got to be careful. You can't give that wrong information either. I can give you all the bank information you want. I know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, well, look, I'm sure with the experience
know?
you've got, even say the conveyancing process, the amount of knowledge you'd have
Oh,
for that.
yeah.
But you're right, you've got to stay in your lane because the
Correct,
insurer won't cover
correct.
you.
No,
and,
that's right,
That's where you
that's
just got to
right.
partner up with good people.
No, 100%.
Yeah.
100%. And so every Monday for 9 years, we did seminars, workshops. And look, I'd get anything from 10 people attending to 80 people attending. So I tapped into all the different student agencies. So there'd be a lot of Italians coming out on student visas because they couldn't tap into the working holiday visa or vice versa, And I created a phenomenon
Did you just say every Monday for 9 years?
Yeah, for 9 years. I had no life.
And we're not
Yeah.
talking Zoom meeting.
No,
we're
face to
talking
face.
physical.
At the Commonwealth Bank. So we had an area that was dedicated. So it was flagship.
Yep.
So we had an area dedicated for
Is this
actual
in the city?
seminars. Yeah, yeah.
This is like the
240
flagship
Queen
CBD.
Street. Yeah, yeah.
Is that where it is now? The same one on the corner, or is
Yeah,
it somewhere
yeah,
else?
no, the same
Oh,
one on the
beautiful.
corner.
Opposite the Apple store there,
Correct,
bottom of the
yeah.
Queen Street Mall.
Yeah,
I know
correct.
it well. That's where we'd
Yeah.
go. That's where I'd go as a settlement
Yeah.
clerk when we started
There
here.
you go. We had a little coffee shop. We had a
Beautiful.
little coffee shop set up. So
Yeah.
the bank would provide obviously water and coffee, espressos. I was so lucky, so blessed. I got an accountant involved. I got an immigration agent involved and the Italian consul. I then grew it bigger. I had a local policeman involved because, a lot of these young people that were arriving didn't comprehend the legalities of living here. You can't just do this. Yeah, you do that in Italy in your village, but not here. You can get arrested. That's actually against the law. You break the law.
Let's spend just 1 minute on that, because I had the biggest culture shock of my life in my mid-20s when I went to Greece for the first time. To anyone that's followed the show knows that I'm a proud Catherian. It's half of my
like
background.
me, I'm a proud Sicilian. Yes.
And we went there after my papu passed away to sort out his affairs and whatnot with my dad. It was the first trip, and I saw how they live, which is they're free. They've got different challenges, right? It's a very different world.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
And I just thought to myself, they're all riding around on scooters and motorbikes, no helmets, no safety gear, no worries, right? Park the scooter at the front door, not in a special bay. And I'm thinking, man, if these people came to Australia,
Oh, yeah.
they wouldn't even realise, you actually have to wear the helmet, and there are bays. So things like that, to your point, to help them sort of assimilate into the community is so critical.
Yeah.
So
And then-
what a cool thing to have someone
Yeah.
like a police officer going,
Yeah.
hey, here's 10 things you really can't do here, get in trouble.
Yeah. But even like having children, impregnating an Australian girl and thinking you're going to get citizenship because you fathered a baby to an Australian citizen. Like these are all the rumours that were going around, and people were literally believing it because Italians, like Greeks, stay away from institutions. Don't believe what Mariangela says. Oh, she's the bank. Don't trust her. Oh, no. Because that's a European thing. You don't go to them for help because they're jealous of you. They're not there to help you. So here we are in Australia and we are actually helping you.
Yeah, there's no agenda.
That's right. I'm not getting paid for it.
Yeah.
It's...
Yeah, we're selfless every Monday night for 9 years. That's wild.
Myself, a lawyer who is a lawyer/immigration agent, the consul at the time, and I went through 3 consuls. So 3 consuls of 4 years.
Wow.
Yeah. So one at the end, one full, and then 1 2.5 years. So it turned out to 9 years. So lucky, grateful that CBA let me do that. It created a massive branding for me. It created a massive connection for me. This committee became the first in the world to do that, to care for the young people that were coming to Australia. So then from me, it kind of started around Sydney and Melbourne. But of course, I created a team. We were a team together.
So it was pioneered here first by
in
you.
the world.
Wow.
In the world. Yeah. It was such a
I'm
big
processing
deal.
all the stuff you're saying because I'm like, whoa, hang on.
Yeah. We did a guide called Prima Fermata, Queensland, First Stop Queensland, and that was done through committees. So that was funded the first round by the Italian government, and it was just a simple guide: how to set up a bank account, how to get your tax file number, how to find a rental property. These are all firsts. You don't realise the importance of information like that, how it changes your life.
It's different now. Now
It's a different world.
Forget Google changed the game. The internet changed. Now you go and ask AI, it'll plan your trip, it'll do anything, it'll do your job for you. It's nuts.
And we had COVID in the middle of all this as well. So for me, I was at another bank then where I currently am now. But the responsibility of the Italian community, because under the Italian law, I could only do 2 mandates as president. So I couldn't candidate.
Okay.
It's actually an election. It's a proper government-backed election. It's not like an association, say, oh, well, you're the chair for 3 years and you're the treasurer. No, this is an actual election.
Proper
campaign.
election.
Yeah. So I couldn't candidate again. So you have to have a break for 5 years. For me, when COVID hit, I remember I rang up the consul at the time and I said, what are we doing? And he said to me, I'm in your hands. I don't know. And I said, well, I don't know either. And I just remember going, what are we going to do? Because I then was part with a Greek representative, a Chinese representative. We were invited by then Scott Morrison, the Prime Minister, to represent our ethnic communities in a meeting that we would do every month to see where we're all at in our ethnic communities. It was really organised really, really well what the government did. So then I would report back to the ambassador and to the consul, because I was in Brisbane. I had the Italian Consulate here. And, I remember the then Prime Minister saying, they've got to have $10,000 in their super. They can access $10,000. Well, a lot of these kids didn't, because they were being paid under the counter.
Doing the black money, the cashies.
Exactly, right. But COVID hit. You've got to pay rent through internet banking. You can't just use cash. Cash had germs. You couldn't do this, you couldn't do that. Not just that, how were they going to survive? Because a lot of them were under a sponsored 457 visa through restaurants. A lot of these restaurants were closing.
Yeah, it's a big knock-on effect to all this stuff,
look,
isn't it? Big knock-on. You talk
yeah.
about work from home, and there's ups and downs to everything. Everybody works from home, CBD fails. Suburban restaurants go well, and some cafes go well, but there has to be a balance.
And even as the bank, I'm a mobile lender.
Yeah.
So I was allowed to come to I was doing appointments in car parks. I was doing appointments like in a park and going, George, can you sign that paperwork, please? Leave it on the bonnet of your car. I'm going back to my car.
Social distancing,
That's right,
getting your wedding signatures.
But business went on as usual. You still had to buy property.
Essential service, right?
100%, 100%. But with the Italians, this was a first for everybody, because they're all under visas. What were they going to do? Schools closed, so a lot of them on student visas. They couldn't go back to their college. They're all on 20 hours a week working. Once you shut that shop, that restaurant, that little coffee shop, these kids had no jobs. So myself and the consul then, and at the time we had an ambassador that was connected. She had been the ambassador in Qatar. So she reached out to Qatar Airlines and she organised a deal, an agreement, not a deal, sorry. The Italian to me, everything's a deal.
Everything's a deal.
The agreement, and they could get a return fare back to Italy. But it wasn't that easy. You had to pay for it. A lot of these kids had cash. Cash couldn't be used. So, it was quite hard. The consulate and I at the time worked very closely together with the embassy, where, look, I'm not exaggerating when I say that 2,000 Italians had to go back to Italy.
Wow.
2,000 of them.
But by the sounds of what you're saying, that in itself was a mission. That wasn't straightforward.
No,
like you have to partner with an airline, build a pathway to get them there.
And that was just Queensland. Then you had New South Wales, you had Victoria and Tasmania. I had Queensland and Northern Territory. And the worst thing was that you couldn't fly into Italy. So a lot of these kids then had to catch planes because then, the Germans got involved, the French got involved. And unbeknown to us, there's guidelines you have, laws and guidelines, which we're not good at following. A plane just can't leave Brisbane Airport, for example, empty. You've got to have at least 60% of the seats full.
Well, otherwise it's not economical the
Exactly.
plane won't bother to go because of the fuel
right.
costs and stuff.
We had Italians holidaying in Fiji. We had Italians holidaying in New Caledonia. They all had to come via Brisbane. So it was huge. And then I reached out to the City Council, to the Lord Mayor's office. They were very kind. They allowed us to use like a number of buildings in the city that were student accommodations, which, are backed up by a lot of these different schools that teach English. A lot of them didn't have student visas.
They were going to be homeless. They were going to be sleeping on the street, literally, right?
And we couldn't allow that. I got together with a number of the restaurants. We put like a roster. If you're going to open Monday, then I'll bring my chefs to work your place on a Monday. We had to diversify. You were no longer fine dining. You then had to do takeaway. So therefore you needed more staff. So everyone got together to help. Everyone. And the calls that I got, the support that I got, I cannot thank the community enough. Oh, you got those, can I say grubs?
You can say whatever you want on this show.
The grubby people.
There's clowns
But you know
everywhere.
Who you are.
There's clowns everywhere.
Yeah, that were all very much trying to put...
But I'm too good for this.
Yeah. And, at the end of it, we're all human. And I kept putting myself in their shoes and thinking, what if my niece was in Italy and this happened? I wouldn't want her to stay in Italy. As much as I love Italy and blah, 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 reality is you want to be at home with your family.
Yes.
So a lot of the families that did go back to Italy had to go back to Italy. And unfortunately, they then lost their visas because then the government changed all the visa requirements after COVID. But I cannot tell you the thanks following up from this, the thanks that I received over the years since COVID hit from a number of Italians that from their experience of living in Brisbane, Gold Coast, Sunshine Coast, Cairns or Darwin, and had to go back to Italy, the knowledge they brought and the experience from here, they took back to their life in Italy and now have set up businesses where they've actually installed that bit of education. As little as it was, that business is now diversified differently in Italy.
Yeah, because of the
Does that
experience
make
they had.
sense?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
Yes.
They suffered in the beginning because they came with that Italian mentality. Oh, what? I've got to work, what? Really? I've got to work from 11 o'clock in the morning till 10 o'clock at night? Really? How does that work? Oh, don't I have 4 hours off in the afternoon?
Yeah, no. I was going to say no mid-afternoon, go home and have some food and have a sleep, which is normal over there, right? At least in Greece it is. I imagine it's the same.
Right. Yeah,
it's
they're
normal.
Not being rude. That's
No,
their
that's the
lifestyle.
culture. It's the culture. The amount of times I got culture shock, in Greece, where I remember I had to go get a SIM card because I wanted the internet, and they're like, oh yeah, Vodafone shop, middle of the island, go there. All right, find my way there.
Yeah.
It's locked.
Yeah.
They go, come back 6 p.m. it opens. It was like 2 o'clock in the Arvo, and they go, from 6 till 8 it's going to be open.
Yeah.
And I thought, what the heck? But then I look back now and go, you know what? It works.
That's right.
It's hot in the middle of the day.
That's
They go
right.
for a
That's
sleep.
right.
They go home
Exactly.
to their wife and kids and they have a feed and they all hang out. They go to the beach for a few hours.
That's that
and then
family
they go
time.
finish the work off. And it works for them.
And they watch Bold and Beautiful in Italy. Italy stops for 2 hours every day. Bold and Beautiful.
God help us all.
Yeah. Rich speaking Italian and Brooke speaking Italian. You know.
Let's move on then to the second point, just because I know between you and I, we can talk underwater. This is a point that I'm very passionate about. So, and I'm passionate about it. You've lived it. You've lived it. Empowering women.
Oh, yes.
So I look at what I've experienced for 10 years in the legal profession. We are a firm here that's over 90% female. We are a minority, us males. Yeah. And I mean, you've seen it all from when you've started to now. And I just want to talk through, in particular, what you've created. I've got some notes here, but I just might get you just to free run it and we'll just go off the cuff and then I'll have a bit of a peek and clean up anything else. But I know you've created a community. You've done this fascinating achievement where you've educated women, and correct me if I'm wrong, from our chats in particular, ones that have maybe been through divorce or maybe death of a spouse.
Domestic violence.
DV's a huge one. And they're in a position where maybe they've got money and that traditional male husband role has always looked after the finances, which was pretty common, especially, I guess, for your parents' gen, your gen. I think maybe now my gen, it's a bit different. The ladies are more empowered through, I guess, things like what you've created to make their own decisions. Talk me through that.
Look, when COVID hit, one of the things that I had already established was the Italian Businesswomen's Network.
Yes.
So I did that probably about 6-7 years ago. And I did that for a reason, because I sat on a board of a very male-dominating entity, Italian entity. And at one stage, the women were asked to either pay a contribution to remain on the board, and I was representing the bank, right? So you can't go to my employer and go, oh, you have to pay $10,000 so that I can sit on the board, when I'd already been on it for 12 years representing the bank and referring a lot of business as well. So obviously then we all left, the females, but it was quite an eye-opening situation for me, because I thought, well, there's nothing for women. What is there for women of Italian background? And I came up with the Italian Businesswomen's Network.
And when did this start?
I said, well, I'm in its 7th year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you rewind, say, only 7 years ago, and we think the culture was still very, like, male-dominated. And again, we're not here to vilify men, right? I mean, at the end of the day, that was sort of culturally pretty situation normal, but we're in a different world now, and we're talking about modernizing, and we're all people. You don't belong to your husband, and I guess that's the journey that you've built, right?
My generation did belong to their husband because they got married at 19, 20. I've never married. My parents have never said to me, oh, you have to be married. Even now at 60, My father, I often say to my dad, oh, yeah, I've got to find some little old fella, nice little pension fund happening. Go, you crazy? You're not married. You stay with me forever.
But he's before his time. That was
100%. No,
uncommon. It
that's
was
right.
common
Very
to
uncommon.
push
Very
you to get
uncommon.
married
Yes,
and to have
that's right.
kids and
No,
to not
no.
work and all that jazz, right? So you've had a very
I had
different
relationships, but it never, they broke up. Yeah, you cry for a month, you think you're devastated, and then all of a sudden you wake up and it's like, phew,
life goes on.
life goes on. But different world, different time, different parents.
Yep.
Different parents. So for me, when I then, as a banker, tapped into situations where I would do interviews of husband and wife. So the husband being an Australian, the wife being an Italian, and then I tapped into the Italian Latino female, because there's a lot of South American female people, South American community, that have Italian citizenship or Italian background.
Interesting.
So they come here on student visas, or some come as Italians on working holiday visas. So I tapped into that over the years, and I would see what would go on in a relationship, and the woman not understanding how life really is here in Australia. Very hard. So you've got your modern Italian from Italy. So I'll talk about the Italian woman that did work. But then you've got the one that has never worked because she studied, and she'll have 2, 3, 4 amazing degrees, but never had a job except working in a bar, which was a good paying job at the time too.
Yeah, like the uni job or whatever. Yeah, like
yeah,
what we all did to get through.
That's right.
Yeah.
And then you come to Australia on a working holiday visa, you do your 88 days on a farm, you meet someone, you fall in love. This then leads on to a spouse visa or a de facto visa. This then leads on to you getting married.
Yep. Normal progression.
Correct. But then the reality hits, because then you are having to then, as a couple, you're still trying to deal with the fact of, are you Italian or Australian? What culture am I taking on? Because the Australian culture is very different to the Italian culture, to the Greek, especially the modern side. Our parents' time, your papu and yaya's time, they adapted. They didn't ask questions.
They assimilated. It's funny, my dad's name is Haralambos.
Oh, dear.
But he's Harry.
Yeah.
Right, and it's funny how it comes full circle, because we've named our son after my dad, which is, following the tradition.
Yes.
And his name is Haralambos.
Yes.
On his birth certificate, he is Haralambos, whereas my dad, he's actually Harry.
Yeah, my dad's Sammy. His name's Salvatore.
There you go, because those European countries, they just wanted to fit in, right? They normalised. Whereas now it's trendy, now it's trendy to do all that stuff.
Yeah.
But sorry, you go on.
And it's the respect of the country. My father looked at it that when he had to make a choice of staying as an Italian citizen or denouncing Italian citizenship and becoming an Australian, he'd already been here 16 years.
Wait, no dual?
No. I've got dual because I was born to an Italian woman. My mother doesn't have Italian citizenship. She had to give it up because that was what the government wanted them to do then.
I think my grandparents, now that you mention it, the same. There was a big
everyone
deal for them going, you know what, we're not going back. Like, we'll hand this in, we'll become Australian.
That was my dad's attitude.
Whereas now, our generation, we're the luckiest. We can, I'm Aussie. I was born here, born in the Mater. I can get myself a Greek citizenship as a dual and live the best of both worlds
if I want. My family, myself and my brother, my middle brother, have Italian citizenship. My mum and my dad and my youngest brother, Joe, don't.
How wild.
Yeah, the law then, I was born in 1966, I was born to an Italian citizen. My mum then became Australian in 1972. I became Australian with my mother, and I was born here. So when I go to citizenship ceremonies, I get invited by a number of the Italian clients. I cry. I'm like the old lady in the back, bawling my eyes out, because I don't ever recall giving oath to the country. And now I give oath to the country for me. And I think, how lucky are they? You're right, because they do come here as Italian citizens and now have the privilege of becoming an Australian citizen.
It's all because of our foremothers and fathers, that the sacrifices they made. And
that's right.
Yeah, I mean, it's very close to home for me. It's even closer to home for you. You lived through it. I can only imagine what my parents went through, what you went through, and what their parents went through. They were the ones that pioneered this.
That's right. They had to say goodbye.
Yeah, no internet. Wow, what a different time.
No, we had to ring the lady on the corner and let her know to go get my grandmother, my nonna, because we were calling in half an hour on Sunday night. We'd get together and say, we're going to ring up Nonna, and we'd talk to Nonna half an hour, rain, hail, snow, in a little village in Sicily on the mountain there, and that's when we'd speak to my nonna.
Yeah.
But getting back to the women education bit.
Yes, because is it not fair to say you guys have like a 10,000 strong network now?
I've
Is
got
that...
about over 80,000.
Oh,
Yeah,
my
yeah,
data's a bit off,
No,
all right?
no.
80,000
Yeah,
in
I've got over
in
80.
7 years.
Yeah.
Because I remember when we met, you
Yeah.
were telling me, oh, I'm off to Adelaide to do this
Yeah,
seminar.
yeah.
And I'm like, oh, what are you doing in Adelaide? I had no idea, right? I'm like, oh, I do this thing. So, yeah, continue. Explain.
So, yeah,
Let's spend maybe 5 minutes on it, right? Just with what you've done, what you've built, and
Because
then...
I've connected the banking side of it as well. So I was approached by a friend of mine who's a lawyer, and she is of Italian heritage as well. And one day we were just having a coffee, we were just talking about education pieces. And I was saying to her, you know, it's quite hard to explain this is what happens even in interviews now for privacy. I can't say to you, your wife's got 15 afterpays or she's got a tab at Louis Vuitton or anything. You know, it's privacy.
Yeah, or
But
sports bet or whatever it is. Yeah.
you know, I've got your business and I've got her business, but you're together. And as an Italian, that never happened. My parents were never like that. My mum knew exactly what my dad did, and vice versa. My mum didn't even have a bank account for many years because she didn't need it. Because back then, she would just go to the bank. You had a check, cash. My father would pay all his workers. He had, you know, anywhere from 10 to 20 labourers. My mother, every Friday, I'd go with her, and when I was on school holidays, we'd go to the Commonwealth Bank at Fortitude Valley, cash the check, she'd put in a little bag, and off we'd walk back home, and she would do everyone's pay.
Yeah, it was a pool of money as opposed to it's a bit modern now to go, you got your bank account,
And she'd
I've
write
got
the
mine.
envelope and she'd put Giorgio, Francesco, and, you know, the tax.
Yeah.
It was all exact. My mother had my mother did grade 4, and here she is running my father's business without even understanding what. But my dad, the night before, would work out what everyone's pay was, and then he would leave the list, and then my mum, after getting the cash from the bank, we'd walk up Brunswick Street home with the pram, and, you know, I'd have my little potato gems walking. She'd buy coals. That was my treat. And she'd count the money. She would count the money till the last 1 cent.
Yep. That's adapting and necessity. Yep.
And she would say to me, how nice are they here at the bank? Like, they helped me. Look how and I'd look over the till because it was all timber and it was bars. And I'd look over and I think, oh, she's beautiful, you know, the bank teller. And years later, I was that person.
Yeah, I was just thinking that. I'm like, and now that's you helping the next generation.
Right,
Yeah, it's very cool.
And with Nadia, my friend, the lawyer, she came up with this amazing concept. She kills it. And we did it. And our first one, I remember, was in her law firm that she worked at. And we ended up getting, I think, like 10 people. It's like, oh, this is a flop, man. No one wants to come. And then we started getting, we did about 4 or 5 because then COVID hit quite severe. We couldn't do them anymore. But then I started, whenever I travelled down south, I started tapping into the Italians down there.
So elevator pitch me, right? I know what it is.
Yes.
But to this audience, what exactly is it and what does it do?
So basically, I don't prepare slides. I don't prepare anything. I just walk into the room, I introduce myself, and whether there's 10 of them, 10 ladies, or whether there's 40 ladies, it's just open conversation. Why are you here? Why are you here? Your name and what do you do? Why are you here? And it's conversation. And everyone learns because I know what I'm like in seminars and workshops, and I've got to read slides. I think, oh, I can't see. Oh, what does that say? Hang on, that was too quickly. This is conversation. I learn from you, you learn from me. I might be embarrassed to bring something up. You're not. And you bring it up, and then I'm comfortable.
So it's a room full of ladies. Is this all around Australia?
Yeah, I've done it in Adelaide. I've done it in Sydney.
Obviously, Brizzy, you got a good base here.
Brisbane,
That's where your floor is.
Yeah. And we just touch. I had to read a contract not to fall in love with just the prettiness of the house. You know, the white picket fence dream. It's full of white ants, maybe. You know what I mean?
Yeah, oh my God, it's New Farm or it's Ascot. It's like there's a bit more to it than that.
Yeah.
Am I correct to say this is traditionally for, like we were saying, those ladies who have maybe gone through the divorce or the DV or the death, and they've now, they need help. So they want to buy a property. They want to make sure their money's working for them. This is
giving them confidence because a lot of women come out of the bad divorce and come out of a 30. I had one, I'll give you an example. She was married 36 years. She was 18 when she got married, and not of any ethnicity background. And she just woke up one day and didn't want to be married anymore. Her children were grown up. She was a grandmother. She was working part-time. She came out of that divorce quite taken aback because traditionally too, and I was quite taken aback because this happens in Italian families where the husband is the boss, let's say, the money maker. But
the breadwinner.
But you've got the lifestyle. You're driving the nice car. You've got the beautiful house, etc., etc. In her case, she actually woke up one day and didn't want any of that anymore. She just felt she was 52, 53 and had more to offer. And she made a deal with him. And he said, you're not getting the family home. You're not getting this. You're not getting this. You're not getting this. And plus, she had elderly parents. So she had to tell her parents she didn't want to be married anymore. Her parents couldn't understand it. You're a homemaker. Why are you leaving your husband? How dare you leave your husband? Anyway, they came to an agreement that she would buy one of the investment properties. And she wasn't even given the right legal advice because at the end, she could have taken him for half of everything because she was the main power of the business. She's the one that ran that without her even knowing.
I was about to say,
the business while he worked.
And it's not a plug at all because it's not our core offering, but we do a little bit with like binding financial agreements and advice and that sort of stuff. Predominantly it's family lawyer territory, right? We're property lawyers. But just whoever's listening out there, that is critical. You got to get that advice early. And it's cool that through these seminars, conversations that you're having with these women, it's an education piece of going,
100%.
You don't have to be bullied into signing this because at the end of the day, you got to protect yourself. And sometimes people are putting it under your nose to pressure you. It's often not good for the recipient. You need to get your own advice and make an informed decision.
And she was working part-time and in her head, and she came to one of our seminars, she kills it. And she contacted me afterwards. And can I tell you, she had no confidence at all. Looking at her, she was stunning. And she said to me, I can never buy a property. I can't buy him out of this property. And I said to her, do you mind if I do your figures? Just do some borrowing capacity.
Look, I've done this once or twice before. You know how to run some figures.
And that's right. And he wanted her to take the debt on the property as well. So the property was worth quite a bit of money. But it had lost, I'll just throw numbers out there. Say it was like a $200,000 debt. So she had to take that debt on, which I'm talking, say, 5 years ago. That was a lot of money, The property was worth, like the LVR, I remember, was just below 60%. And I thought, oh, well, that's good. I can get her a bit of a discount on the rate. She was going to live in it, which was great. Her son was going to move in with her. He was paying her board, but the policy at the time, I couldn't use board.
Yeah, no, that's only a recent, like what the last, not even 2 years.
That's right, that's right. So I couldn't use that, but I knew that he was contributing. So I could do it outside guidelines. But I wanted her to be independent from that. I wanted her to have that confidence in knowing that she could do it on her pay. And I remember she gave me her pay slip and she'd been working for about 18 months. In policy, you had to be working for 2 years casual in order for me to do the year to date. And look, it was... Anyway,
some red tape to get past.
Look, we got it through. And we got it through even like through the legalities of it as a lawyer as well. So the law firm tapped in to helping her do with the contract, having to do then the title, having to change it to put it in her name.
Spousal transfer.
Everything.
Refinancing.
There's a lot of stuff you don't know until you're in that situation.
And it's emotional too, right?
100%.
Like, it's easy for me sitting at my desk going, oh, yep, another related party's transfer from MA, no worries, but... There's a lot of emotion behind that. And, depending on if it's a nasty situation, even if people are amicable on the way out, it's hard. And that's where family lawyers are so important, right? And independent advice is so important.
Yeah.
Like, even if it's on the, let's call it the nicer side, if it was on a scale, it's still emotional, it's still challenging, it's still
100%.
overwhelming, especially if you've never dealt with that side of it before. So props to you for what you've built for your community of all these ladies to help them get the knowledge to make a good decision so that they're not bullied or pressured into doing something to play themselves.
But it's also to our culture. A woman gets married, has babies and stays home. That's it. I've got friends that became nurses in their 50s, in their late 40s, because their father would not let them be a nurse. You had to get a job and be a secretary. That was the girl thing, the normal thing to do back in my time.
I'm thinking Serena Russo.
Oh, yeah.
Russo. That's ringing a bell.
Is
I
she
remember
Sicilian?
listening to her on a
I went to her.
podcast
My
and
dad sent me to her. Yeah.
her story about not being allowed.
That's
And
right.
it says that was the culture, right? That was normal. So you're not going to get a job. You're going to get married
That's right.
and you're going to have
Exactly.
babies.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's just a different world now. Look at my nieces. I've got a 28-year-old and a 16-year-old. You know, they're ambitious. And Emily just got married last year. She's got her and her husband, going overseas, and they've bought a property and they're living their life now as a young married couple. Whereas before, you got married, you had a baby. If you didn't have a baby within 12 months, oh my gosh, you can't have babies. Oh my God, what's wrong with her? Do you know what I mean? From both sides of the family, that's traditionally. But the modern Italy, which I do a lot of education pieces with the modern Italian woman too, they inherit now the businesses as opposed to the fathers leaving the business to the first son or to a son. It is now left to the woman to run the business. Because like a gentleman that's quite an entrepreneur in Italy said to me, I trust my daughter with my life, not my son, because my son is married. His wife is the one behind his head going, oh, no, don't do that for your father. Oh, no, unless your father buys us a new car through the business, I'm not going to his place for lunch on Sunday. So this is now coming out of the woodworks. The modern Italy, the daughter is the one that now is educated. The daughter is the one that doesn't want to get married. She wants to be part of the family empire. She wants to be part of the family legacy.
So different, hey? Yeah,
Such
it was always the
big
firstborn son or the sons. It was
Exactly. So for me, I found all this out through the Italian Business Women's Network because through COVID, I tapped into an accountancy firm in Italy that was run by women and found them in social media. They were just advertising themselves. Tapped into them. I got an Italian female immigration agent based here in Brisbane, myself, an accountant, female, and an accountant in Italy. How to do business in Australia. So our first seminar got 800 people. Like, I don't even know how that happened, right? Because I'm not IT. I'm very 80s, very, very 80s.
Go back to what you were saying before when you started this Monday night thing with CDA, and you said, 6 people rock up, and you're like, oh, rock on. Like, compare that to what you're achieving now. It's unbelievable.
No. And we called it Fare Business in Australia, how to do business in Australia. So between all of us, we had our little niche. And then I had clients that were already my clients, so had experienced my service, what the bank could offer them as a foreign company basing themselves in Australia. So I got her, being a female, running this big Italian company, her experience.
Cool.
And she spoke very openly about how scared she was. And she said, it's hard to do business in Italy, let alone try to do business in a foreign country. But when you have people that you can contact, that they do the running, and mind you, we were all doing it for free too. Like, I'm a banker, I can't charge, I'm on a salary. It's not a business that I'm running.
And you're not there to grab the cash. It's a philanthropic venture.
That's right.
You're doing it to give to your community.
That's right.
Which is a community that gave to your family.
Me. That's right. Exactly. But you know what the highlight of my life has been? My niece, my youngest niece, who's now 16, when she was like 9 or 10, they had to Google someone, and she Googled me.
Yes.
And I remember one night at family dinner, she goes, Zia, auntie, Zia, I Googled your name and I can't believe what you do and how you help people. And I said, what do you mean? And she said, well, at school today we had to Google someone. And I just wanted to Google you. I just put your name in there. And I said, do you know how to spell my name, right? She was 8. She goes, yeah. She goes, and then your photo came up. And even I called my teacher and she couldn't believe it. And you helped the Italian community so much. I used to do a date night with my nieces and nephews where we'd go to an Italian restaurant, and it was good until they could read because, I'd just order pizza. It wouldn't be much, just $20, Now, then they started to read and they're like, the mains, can we have this as entree? Can we have that as mains? And I would take them to restaurants where the waiters were guys that I had helped.
Yep.
And I wanted them to see that Australia was not their home, as in they were born here. They are like nonno and nonna. They migrated here. And this is the business sponsored them. So they're here. Oh, so can't they speak English? And I'd say, no, they can't. They're learning English. So they're sponsored. They're on a visa, so they get sponsored. What they do here is a skill that they've brought from Italy. Oh, so they make pizzas. That's right. They're a pizzaiolo. How do you say that word?
Yeah,
So,
it's cool for life
do you
experience,
know what
isn't
I
it?
mean?
And opening their minds up.
Yeah. So even now as adults, they understand when someone has an accent that this person came here to Australia on some type of visa, number one. Number two, they're here on a holiday.
Yeah.
And they're just enjoying our country as they should.
Well, it would have been a very cool feeling for you.
Yeah, definitely.
Being like,
Yeah.
yeah, this is neat.
Yeah,
This is all
yeah.
coming together from an 8-year-old.
Yeah. And then she'd
That's
go there
very
for
cool.
dinner with the parents, and she knew all the waiters. And my brother go, how do you know their names? I was here with Zia last week. Yeah, like she knew everybody.
That's how I felt when we caught up, last year with my wife, and we went to an Italian restaurant in the valley.
The Valley, yeah.
And you knew everyone, and I'm like, yeah, this is a testament to,
thank
your character and what you've built.
Yeah.
And on that note, I'm going to move us to the last
Yes,
point, which
yes.
we've already covered a few of these points, but let me just have a little look here. We've got the Italian honour and what legacy
yes.
looks like.
Yes.
So tell me about when you received the honour of being one of only 2 women in the country.
Carla Zampatti was the first to ever receive this honour. So it was in 2011 the then president of Italy decided that women should be eligible to be knighted as commendator. Traditionally, it was given to men in the army, in the navy, so men of a certain level as a commendator. So, yeah, he decided that women were in the navy. Why shouldn't they be recognised for what they do?
Yep.
Women fought in the war. Why shouldn't they be recognised for what they do?
And this is 2011. I can't believe that.
Yeah.
This is only 15 years ago.
Yeah, that's
We're not
right.
talking 50,
Exactly.
15 years ago.
That's why there's not many women that have this title.
Wow.
Like now in Australia, since Carla Zampatti's passing, I was the only one until last year. And then last year, another 2 women. And this year, another 2 women. So in Australia now, there's 5 of us. Yeah.
Congratulations,
Thank you.
first of all.
Yeah.
And to explain it to me as a layman that doesn't really understand. So this is like the equivalent of like
Of a lady. It's a knight. It's a lady. Yeah. So, when they knight.
So like it's like knighting.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. And this comes from Italy. So this
the
is
president of the Republic of Italy. So you're
decides.
nominated.
Wow.
Yes, I was nominated by the then ambassador.
Yep.
And the then consul. So they pushed me forward. So normally you go through certain levels. You start down here and you work your way up to a knighthood of a high level, which is very hard to get. But I was nominated and I was brought from nothing, basically straight into that.
Wow.
Yeah, so it was quite emotional, very emotional. My grandfather was a Cavaliere of the war because he was a prisoner of war. So his army battalion were prisoners of war for 4 years in Germany back then.
Goodness me.
So in 1987, 88, he was given a knighthood, a Cavaliere. So he's buried here in Brisbane and his title's Cavaliere, but at a different level of war. So commendator was then just given to men. And now since 2011, women.
Wow.
And there's not many women in the world that have it, actually. I think not even 200.
Goodness me.
Yeah, so it's quite an elite. And I'm very proud because I'm the first Sicilian woman too. And I didn't know this until I was in Sicily 2 years ago. And I spoke in Parliament in Sicily and I was introduced.
And you're fluent as well, by the way, everyone.
In dialect, yeah.
Yeah.
That doesn't exist anymore. It's from the village. They think I speak strange, but anyway. And I lap up all the attention. And when they introduced me, when the chair introduced me, and he said, the first of Sicilian heritage. And I thought, really? And apparently, yes.
Congratulations.
Yeah, so very honoured. And you don't do it for recognition like that. It's just natural.
No, you were recognised for what you did.
Yeah,
like you said, you
in
weren't
the
working your way
community.
through the ranks.
No,
you were just
that's
doing.
right.
You've been doing this thing, every
right.
Monday night for years.
Yeah,
all this
that's
philanthropic
right.
work, and it's
Yeah.
nice to be recognised.
Look, at the end of the day, and you get your good days, you get your bad days, like you saw me before. That's life.
We're all on a journey. Yeah.
100%.
Yeah, I always say on the
100%.
podcast, if you can hang your hat on the hook before you go to bed,
Yeah.
and you're like, I've done a good thing,
That's
I'm
right.
doing good work,
Yes, that's right.
then it gives you a lot of
That's
self-fulfillment.
right.
There's
people are nasty too. You've got the haters, you've got the lovers. Not everyone likes me.
bugger the haters, bugger them.
Yeah, but it takes a long time to deal with that too, psychologically. You can be great at your job. You can be great at everything that you do, that you put your heart and soul in something honestly. You get one person one person, and that your world comes crashing down to thinking, why doesn't that person like me? What did I do? How can I better myself to have? And then you just wake up one morning, I don't give a shit.
The thing is, those people don't get to sit in chairs like this. And, there is imposter syndrome to an extent. When I started this podcast, I'm like, who am I to start this podcast? I'm like, you know what? On the flip side of the coin, why not me?
Yeah,
We're on this journey to raise the bar.
Yes.
It's an uphill battle, that's for sure. But if people don't start to have conversations like this and to recognise things like community service, doing bits and pieces that's philanthropic, not just about putting more money in your pocket,
and
actually
KPIs.
helping, helping.
That's right. Yeah.
I'm very passionate about, I'm not going to go on about it too much but it is a theme of raising the bar. I'm very passionate about everyday people, everyday Joes having a good experience for their property transaction, from the job as the conveyancing solicitor, from the job as the banker or the broker, to the building and pest, to the real estate agents. We should all be held to account.
100%.
Because this is people's livelihood.
100%.
This is all their money most of the time. And if it goes wrong, it's game over.
And we're very lucky, you and I, that we have, like I can just pick up the phone and ring Antonia from REIQ if I've got a query, or if I've got a situation, which I've had a number with real estate agents, where I can just ring her and just say, hey, is this the go? Is this normal to happen?
Yeah.
Because don't forget a number of my clients, this is their first time that they buy a property. They will never be able to afford a property in Italy. But here they are as Australians buying a property in Australia and saving their deposit and not even asking me for the first homeowner's grant. Like I don't deal in the homeowner's grant. So my clients are savvy enough as a first home buyer to have that 20%. Wow. How lucky.
Wow.
And that's paying rent as well.
That's hustle. It takes years. And this is what burns me is, if you get the wrong representation or get the wrong advice, or you end up following the path of maybe a cheaper real estate agent who does lower commissions or whatever, that refers a cheaper conveyancer or it's offshore or whatever it may be. These people's deposits, some people work over a decade of slogging it out, living in an area, not New Farm.
No.
Not New Farm or Tenerife. We're talking, these people are on the train for an hour or driving for hours out in the sticks.
And they're happy
to get by, and they've saved all this money.
That's right.
And then they've ended up in a place that maybe the representation is not the best for them, and their deposit is at risk, or they lose it.
Yeah.
Think about that.
I fight. I pre-approve all my clients. George, you can spend 1.2 million, which means I'm lending you $800,000. Don't go over 1.2 million, all right, George? Don't ring me, George. I'm not pushing it any further, George. You
Behave at the auction. Behave at the auction on Saturday, all right? 1.2 limit.
My wife likes it. I don't care what your wife thinks. You're the boss, George. So we have a bit of a joke about that, But in saying that, for me, it's very important that I align myself with good, honest representation as well. For me, a real estate agent and the banker have to align together. We have to. I'm not taking the business away from you. I'm actually helping you get the business, and I'm actually helping you better yourself as a brand, as a real estate agent, because guess what? I'll continue to send you that business. But you piss me off and you start doing these 7-day finance clauses.
And pushing, being pushy, yeah.
Well, I just said, and I'm lucky that my clients trust me and listen to me. And I tell them from the beginning, if something goes wrong, this is what happens. These are the consequences. Are you happy for me to do? Yeah, whatever you say. We trust you, Mariangela. That means so much to me.
That's so important, right?
100%.
And it's the same position with us, right? Like my sole job is to service that client.
Yes.
Okay, it's great if you send a client through or a real estate agent sends a client through. Thank you for the introduction. But my job legally is to protect that client's interest, be it on the sales side or the purchase side.
Yes, that's right.
And it grinds my gears when I sound like a broken record. You got a real estate agent. I had one call me last week. Oh, they're going to lose the deal. There's other offers, blah, 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 blah. And it's the same old story. And it's, you know what? You're a professional, Mr. or Mrs. Real Estate Agent. manage your vendor. I don't even believe it's the vendor half the time.
No, it's not. It's
all porkies,
No,
and
that's
this is
right.
where the industry's got to do better.
Yeah,
And I'm not here
yeah.
to vilify agents. There's lots of good
No.
ones.
Oh, 100%.
But you know what? I've got a motivated buyer here.
Yeah.
If you can't give me 24 hours to get a lawyer to run their eye over this contract, I'm not asking for a week. Give me 24 hours so that we can make sure they're not going to make a mistake. Then shame on you. You don't know how to do vendor management, or you're pushy, and that garbage gets you on bloody TV and you get in trouble. And, you know, and
No. 7-day finances, look, valuations are taking 3 weeks. Build it in pairs to take in.
What, there's not
10
enough
days.
value? Where are the valuers? So what's going on?
What's going on?
Why does it take 3 weeks?
No, but everyone is busy. And this is the thing. There is so much movement happening in the property market. Like high interest rates or not, people are still buying property.
Migrants, first home buyers, and look, not necessarily just them, but that's a core demographic that you service and you help.
That's right. A lot of my clients are professionals. A lot of my clients I've been dealing with for 10 years, 15 years, and they just continue to grow their portfolio. So their home is paid out. Now we're doing the first investment or their second or their third investment. And I'm blessed in the sense that I suppose 40 years and you've got a brand. You're a brand. I'm a brand. Yeah,
I love your
brand. You're not going to please everybody. You're not going to please everybody. And if I can't help you, I'm very honest and I'll say, George, I can't help you, but I'll put you onto a broker that can.
Yes.
You know, there's certain things you can do, certain things you can't do.
Same as us, you know.
Life.
If you're a criminal, if you've got family law stuff going on, if you want to go to war, you know, I'm not your guy. I'm not. But if it's around property, our team can do it.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, and you got to play your strengths.
That's right. And I'm lucky again that, you know, I'm dealing with not just the Italians. I've got the Greeks, I've got the Spanish, I've got the South Americans, you know. So for me, it's every day is a different day.
You're Carl Stefanovic. He'll come and have a chat to you at the annual event.
That's a good lunch, eh?
Oh, it's awesome. Yeah, I think 3 years in a row I've been now, and I'm keen for the next one.
Yeah.
Waiting to hear from you with what's going next.
He does a great podcast now.
I'm a avid listener.
It's very good, isn't it?
I commute from the Gold Coast every day, or most days, and he's very fast at getting episodes out.
Yeah, he's very good.
Yeah.
Good team behind him.
Yeah, I was going to say we're just a little production team here, myself and my sister who does our marketing,
I think
and he can pump them out quick. Yeah, very good, very good.
Yeah. And he's good because he touches on a lot of real things. Like I've sent a couple of people that are in non-for-profits. He'll do a good job with speaking with them and promoting their businesses and what their mission is and so forth. Because you've got to have the good and the bad.
Unfiltered, I think. It's people, none of this smoke and mirrors stuff anymore. And that's what we're trying to... We're trying to encourage that a bit more here, right? Is just the honest, raw stories.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
On that note, I've got one more thing for you and then we're done. It's called the Golden Nugget. So the Golden Nugget, for those who may be first-time listeners, just one little nugget of advice that you want to give out to the world of whoever's listening to this podcast, Raising the Bar. Doesn't have to be specifically property related. It can be anything at all. I know you've already dropped a lot of nuggets on this episode. It's been amazing. Just one thing to put a bow on this and round it out for whoever's listening.
Love your haters. Love your haters. I'm finding
Tell me
with
more.
age. I'm finding with age. I'm very particular about who I allow in my life. I'm very particular about who I share my time with. However, if I know that you don't like me, if I know that you, and especially, you know, within my community, everyone knows who's who in the zoo, I actually now go out of my way to say hello to you. I actually now go out of my way to say hello to you. Whereas before, I'd walk away, I'd bag you, go, that George, right?
Yeah, he's a rat bag.
Hi, George.
Yeah.
How are you? How's the family?
Yeah.
It's a head spin for you because you're like going, oh, she's actually not that bad, you know. She's actually a nice person. Not that I need you to like me, but it's for me. It's my mental health.
Yes. You got to look after yourself,
That's right.
right?
That's right.
So there you go. Love your haters.
Love your haters.
That's the first time we've had a love your haters nugget on the podcast. So there you go. Yep. Beautiful.
You're not being a bad person. You're actually addressing the situation.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's hating someone's pretty hardcore.
It's a bad word.
These people that don't like you or me or whoever, it's like, I heard this amazing expression from a lady called Emily. Shout out to you, Em. She says, I get secondhand embarrassment for them. And I thought about it and I'm like, Yeah, it's true. It's just like, man, like I feel sorry for you that you have this hate in you.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's not going to affect my life. I've got a great, I'm blessed. I've got the best life in the world. So I'm lucky.
Yeah.
But yeah, don't let that invade your space.
Yeah, but it does. You
Of
don't,
course,
you
it's human.
don't-
It's human
That's
nature to
right,
feel that way. You go,
exactly.
well, man, why don't these guys like me? You know, why do they
Exactly.
give me the greasy look?
Yeah, 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 yeah.
But you know what?
Oh,
Oh
I
well.
purposely now it affected me for a very long time, probably a good 2-3 years recently.
And that's normal. I think everyone feels this
know?
way. You know, it's not good.
Yeah.
It's not good to feel this.
Yeah, and then I just woke up one day, and after speaking, speaking to even my priest, in the Catholic Church, I'm a Catholic ambassador for the Catholic mission.
Of course you are. Yeah.
So I've got to be nice to everyone, right? But I'm not. But I try to be, I should say that.
Yeah.
But, and it's true. You can't expect everyone to like you. Is it respect that I want? What is it that I want? And then I thought, well, I just don't want to be in a situation where I know that person hates me, because hate is such a bad word.
It's heavy.
But I don't want that person to like me if he doesn't like me. But at the same time, I've done nothing for you not to like me. But I'd rather you ring me and say, MA, let's have a coffee. And then we can clear the air, because if I've said something that's come to you 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th hand, that's a situation there we're talking about. Because you should have the courage to come to me, like I come to you and say, George, let's have a coffee. And then if we don't like each other after that, that's fine. But at the end of the day, I'm a professional and you're a professional.
It takes two to tango as well.
100%.
You could be extending the olive branch and they're not interested, and that's
right.
their journey, and you're on your own
Exactly.
journey. So yeah, protect your peace.
That's
Love
right.
your haters.
That's right. Love your haters. That's a good tattoo, eh?
There you go. Yeah. Watch out. I reckon we round it out there.
Thank you, George. Thank you very much. This has been wonderful.
Thank you for what you've done for your community, the community,
and
the
thank
property
you.
space. You've introduced me to some people that have helped me on the mission I'm on. So yeah, and thank you for trusting us with your clients.
Thank you.
For anyone that wants to find you, it's very simple. They can just Google your name.
Google me.
Just like your niece did.
Just like my niece did.
Or if you ask any local Italian restaurant, they'll probably know who you are.
True. But thank you. Look, you and your guys, you're all incredible. And, for me, it means a lot that I can have the confidence where I can just put my clients, and it's a first-time experience, to you and to your staff. And everyone's understanding. We are aligned. We put our clients first.
Thank you.
And
I
that
remember
means so much.
I remember when I first met you, I literally remember the conversation. I said, look, I'm sure you've got 5 or 6 Italian lawyers lined up that you've got in line to look after your clients. And yeah, I'm a Greek. I'm from just across the Mediterranean there. But if you want to give us a go.
Yeah, that's
and
right.
we got along really well. And I remember you sent us a client and we looked after him. And here we are. And it's not about that. If we never got any of your clients again, it doesn't matter, because you're doing good stuff. We're trying to do good stuff. And that's just when good people come together, good stuff happens.
But it's that confidence, and it's with everything. You build a team around you. Like, I take pride in the team that I've built around me. I don't pay them. They don't work for me. But guess what? We're all professionals, and we're all there for the same thing.
Yes.
To help our clients.
Correct. And that's why you're in this chair.
Oh, that's right.
And on that note, rock and roll, we're done.
Thank you. Grazie.
Efaristo.
Same to you, whatever that means.
Thank you in Greek.
No, I know.
Of course you do. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, George.
Beautiful.
What's the great segment?